The views expressed in this video are that of the content creator, not of their employer. My name's Brownie. I'm in my 30s, mid-career corrections officer. I've seen things most people only read about. Been assaulted, lost my mom at 17, got thrown out at 19. I've worked HVAC, I've started businesses, built a family, but most importantly, I've survived. This channel isn't about pretending life's easy. It's about figuring it out anyway. I'm doing this for me. If it helps you too, stick around. All right, Brownie here. Gonna conclude our series today on the workman's comp procedure. Today's video is dealing with financials sooner rather than later. Okay? And this is the important part of this whole video. If you stuck around this series, this is absolutely the most important part of the series, because this, what we're going to talk about, has to be handled before comp. This has to be handled before it's too late, okay? We are offered Aflac insurance. We are offered short-term disability. We are offered all these things. Now, a lot of guys refuse to pay for the stuff because they don't want any money coming out of their check, period. Okay. And for a while there, I was one of them as well. I was definitely considering not paying for Aflac anymore. I mean, it's $50 more on my check. That's, I don't know, $50 more on a back rat table. That's a couple more cases of beer for the month, whatever. God bless, I'm an alcoholic. I don't drink. I'm referencing non-alcoholic beer in my specific case. Okay. But a lot of COs do drink, and we'll touch on that in a later series. But a lot of guys want the money sooner rather than later, right? So walk away with your pockets full now, but they're not paying attention to stuff going down the road. Now, how I set everything up was I pay for the Aflac short-term insurance, and I pay for NYSCOBA's policy for the short-term disability insurance as well. Basically, I'm trying to make myself whole before anything happens. Okay, this is my insurance. This is how I'm going to continue to pay my rent. This is how I'm going to continue to pay my bills. Now, granted, when I set all this up, I was in the academy, so you're sleep deprived, and you've been up since 3 a.m. and by the time you're sitting there going over the paperwork, you've already been screamed at for several hours. You're basically dead on your feet, and you're going, yes, I'll sign whatever you put in front of me for a cup of coffee and an hour of sleep. But you need to stay on top of that policy, because what works for when you're in the academy doesn't work for, in my instance, a decade in, a better part of a decade. I got 8.5. So the one policy, Aflac, was good. Okay, problem solved, da-da-da. They pay you, let me think. Me specifically, they pay about $33 a day, right? Now, that doesn't sound like much, but when you're out months on end and you're missing the overtime, $33 a day helps a lot. 1, 2. I have the 2 policies, okay? So I have the first policy, Aflac, which you use right along, and I have the second policy for essentially when when I would go over the 6-month marker, and that would be how I would stay whole. So that policy is the Norvest NYSCOBA short-term disability insurance, 30-day waiting period. The same with Aflac, 30-day waiting period, But you're going to want to hit both these up sooner rather than later. Aflac only pays for the 6 months. The Norvest policy pays you, I don't want to say indefinitely, but if memory serves correctly, it pays you about a year. Okay, so the one policy, Aflac, pays about $33 a day, and Norvest pays me about $800 a month, I believe. And this is for me specifically. I don't mind sharing this information with you because I feel like it could help somebody. So now the $800 a month worked out well when I was in the academy because I was only making 40 grand a year. Now, here I am, better part of a decade in. What I should have done was take care of it earlier because $800 a month plus, let's say, half pay is only going to barely get me up to three-quarter pay. Now, my lifestyle far exceeds my, oh, hold on, doesn't far exceed it. But I do the CO thing and I live, here's my means and I live about here, right? So we all do that. We all make mistakes. We're all, nobody taught me finances. I can't speak for you guys, but, it was a good idea when I did it, and I should have stayed on top of it, which is pretty much what I'm referencing in this video is you deal with your financials sooner rather than later, long before even comp enter is into your mind, right? Options are available for New York State Corrections COs, and I would imagine, let's say you're in like South Carolina or Minnesota and you're working for whatever Department of Corrections they offered, imagine you're going to have similar setups. Now, you're probably going to start your career all piss and vinegar and, I'm, immortal and the tier will respect me and da 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 da. I'm going to be Billy Badass, etc. No, no. Just sketch that right out of your head right now, okay? You go into it looking at the bottom line. I hate to say it. You go in looking at how am I going to pay my bills this month? How am I going to pay my bills next month? How am I going to pay my bills several months after that? As with any job. Now, I worked for the private sector for many years. I've built many companies. I've made my money, etc. Your financial situation has to be at the forefront of your thoughts at all times, okay? Now, I'm a big family guy, family first, I'm all that, but you can't take care of your family if you're living in a van down by the river, okay? Well, I mean, some of you are probably into that, but that's neither here nor there, I digress. Take advantage of the insurance options available to you before crisis hits. I cannot stress that enough. Even if it's $100 out of your check, okay, guarantees yourself continuing income in the event of a grievous serious injury. Now, if you fell out of a chair and you're trying to game the system, I can't help you. I never played pretend. I never did that. I don't know. I'm going to die with my boots on. I don't know how to defraud the New York State workman's comp system. I simply don't know. Nor do I see any sort of benefit in it because I'm a worker. I like to earn. Okay? I'm what the mob used to call a street guy. I like making money. Okay? I like making money. I don't like, dealing with political endeavors or any nonsense such stuff you deal with when you're in any sort of higher rank. But you need to consider your finances. And, if you're not a corrections officer, if you're a bus driver, if you're an HVAC tech, if you're Wall Street analyst, or if you're a stockbroker with your Series 7 exam freshly minted, you take into consideration the bad days before you enjoy the good days, because everybody has bad days. I cannot stress this enough. Everyone has bad days. Everyone goes through it. I had a good way to put it, and might not be suitable for YouTube, but here it is. I had a former mobster, prisoner, incarcerated, tell me, go, don't ever think you can't get got. John Gotti thought he couldn't get got. He got. Teflon Don got. Now, the Teflon Don got, guess what? You can too. Okay? Clinton got. Monica Lewinsky. Donald Trump. Need I say more? You need to take care of yourself financially in the good times, okay? Don't think the good times are never going to end. Aflac, Norvest. I can't speak for stuff outside of state. I'm simply not there, but You look for short-term disability plans and funds in the market. Okay. You could even AI is a big thing right now. You could jump on Chat GPT and say, "Hey, I work XYZ. I want to look into short-term disability insurance for my field. What are my options?" Now, I'm a betting man. I'd bet even money that you're going to have not only a ton of options, but a lot of them are going to be affordable. Okay. You can pay out of pocket for them, or you could have it come out of your check, depending on what the situation may be. For my New York State officers there, you get it right out of your check. You won't miss it, especially with the overtime. You won't miss it. It'll come in clutch when you need it. So, by the way, nothing to do with nothing. Neither Aflac nor Norvest are sponsors. Although, if you're listening, Aflac, Norvest, hit me up. Brand new YouTube channel trying to get off the ground here, but in any event, not a sponsor. I don't get nothing by you signing up with Aflac or Norvest. All I can tell you is about my experience in dealing with them. And all I can tell you is how I managed to stay financially secured. All right? So, let's wrap the series up and we'll get on here. Dealing with financials sooner rather than later. In the good times, you spend the money to take care of yourself in the bad times. Use that rule of thumb in your working career, and I promise you, you'll have bad days. But I also promise you, you'll be okay. All right, that wraps up our Workman's Comp series. You're watching Walk the Tier. This is Brownie, signing off.